Wake up, West Coast! Wake up, West Coast! Wake up, West Coast! Well, good morning and welcome. Welcome to the June edition of the Wake Up West Coast Coffee Break. I'm Jane Clark, president of our Michigan West Coast Chamber of Commerce, and I'm delighted to welcome you this morning. Thank you so much for joining us. We have a great program ahead. So let's start with our sponsor remarks. I'd like to welcome Julie Parker. Julie is president of the Economic Development Foundation, or EDF. And EDF is a great partner of the West Coast Chamber. So Julie, we're going to talk about small business financing. Can you talk with me a little bit about what EDF offers in regard to small business financing?
Sure. Again, good morning. My name is Julie Parker, and I'm the president of the Economic Development Foundation, better known as EDF. And we are authorized by the U.S. Small Business Administration to deliver one of the best kept secrets in real estate financing, which is the 504 loan program. So if you're a small business owner considering buying or refinancing commercial real estate, you definitely need to know more about the 504 option. We work alongside businesses all over the state of Michigan, along with their bank or credit union of choice, and we can help them buy, renovate, refinance, or construct a new building. The program can also be used to finance heavy machinery or equipment as well.
Well, I know it's a terrific program. Let's talk about what are the advantages of an SBA 504 loan?
Sure. The three main advantages of the program are number one, the low interest rates. The program has always offered below market rates, but they are now at all-time lows. So many of our clients can actually buy a larger building for less than they're currently paying in rent. The interest rate right now for our 20-year note is currently at 2.85%. And the second reason to consider the program is the low down payment. Business owners are always looking for ways to conserve cash. So the 504 program's typical down payment is only 10% versus the 20 or 30% down required by conventional financing. And last but not least, the program offers long terms. So not only does the program save money and conserve cash, but it locks in that low interest rate for the life of the loan. So this way, the business always knows what their payment is for the full term of the loan, which is either a 10, 20, or 25-year term. So this means that with the 504 loan, there are no new appraisals, there's no surprises, and there's no balloons. So it's a great tool for planning and budgeting. EDF is local. Our offices are headquartered right in downtown Granville, and we have a team of 12 specialists that are always ready to assist. So if anyone's ever interested in learning more about the program, they can visit our website at growmichigan.com, or they can call our offices to speak with one of our loan officers.
Well, Julie, that is great information. And the things we want to remember, low interest rates, a smaller down payment, and long-term loans. So it's just a wonderful program, a great tool for our business members. And we have a link on our website, and we'll be happy to refer people to your organization. So thanks so much for being our sponsor today.
Wonderful, thank you.
And now it's time for our main conversation today. And that is a conversation with Nikki Probst of Custer. Let me introduce Nikki to you. Nikki leads the business relations and marketing areas for the Custer family of companies. Together, these companies build holistic, integrated interior environments through strategy, design, furniture, technology, and flooring. Nikki works closely with area architects and interior designers to support inspiring, engaging workspaces. So I can't think of a better person to have this conversation with. So Nikki, welcome to our Wake Up West Coast Coffee Break.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it's great. And talk about being here. We are back in the chamber office. Our staff is back. We are all fully vaccinated. We're not wearing masks. We don't have to socially distance anymore. We're following all of the MIOSHA and CDC rules, but we've made it through the last 15 months. And it's just a really exciting phase. And so for our members, it's time to really talk about what's this ideal workspace looking like now as we move ahead. So let's start with a conversation about what are the conversations you're having with your clients and customers as they think about this back to better approach.
Right. Well, yes, thank you again. And I have to say and point out, when we started having the conversation about doing this talk with Wake Up West Coast, we didn't really know where the timing was going to fall. And we said it was so great that this is coming at this time where Michigan businesses are being welcomed back and encouraged back to the office. And at Custer, we're just really excited about the new opportunity and the conversations that this affords us to have those talks with our clients about what their concerns are and how we can help there, and really unlearn our old ways of doing things and kind of reimagine new ways of working. So we're all in that part of this together, just figuring it out day by day and having those conversations. So going back to your first question, I think one of the main things, especially lately, that we've been talking about with businesses is this question around a hybrid flexible work schedule, because a lot of business leaders are going back to that kind of approach. When we did a lot of surveys and looking at information early on in the pandemic, a lot of leaders said that 72% of their businesses expect to go back in a hybrid work style. So a lot of people are really questioning what that looks like and how do you encourage people to come back to space if you are a leader that really thinks that we're better collectively when we're together. And I think I was just talking with our lead workplace consultant last week about some of the conversations that she's having on this topic. And she's trying to really give guidance to leaders that it's not going to be like flipping a switch, right? I mean, we've been doing this for 15 months and it's really mentally traumatic to just be like, you need to come back to the office 40 to 50 hours a week. You know, just thinking holistically about inviting people back in a way that they feel safe and belong and you know, a connection to the company's core purpose is really, really important. So here at Custer and other businesses, we're talking about kind of this approach: invite, encourage, expect, inviting them back to the office, showing them what great changes have been made to make them excited to come back together, encouraging them by having them talk to their leadership about what their ideal schedules look like and how that can be worked into more flexibility, and then putting together some more mandates and expecting people to be more in the office for meetings where it might be really important to collaborate in person. So that's the main overarching theme of all these conversations and going back to the office.
Yeah, I love it. Invite, encourage, expect. And so from the chamber perspective, we are learning about hybrid opportunities. And certainly we've invited all of our staff back and we're really learning about everyone's expectations because it will be different, as you said. So what are some of these expectations that employees are having as we kind of reimagine what it's going to look like?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's important too. I'm talking previously on one side of the coin that leaders are going to have their own expectations of people being back to the office, but just considering what employee expectations are and being cognizant of that and making sure that everyone is having this sense of inclusion and trust when we're going back. So yes, I promised your members that I would go over kind of 5 expectations that we've found. If you'll allow me real quick to just share some slides to kind of support this, I'll go through the 5 points real quick and see if I can do this here. And give me a thumbs up, Jane. You see that okay?
I'm good, thanks.
All right, awesome, sounds good. So yeah, these kind of to tee up for those of you that don't know, Custer is lucky enough to be an exclusive partner with Steelcase, which is on top of being a wonderful furniture organization, has a fantastic research team. And through the pandemic, they put some feelers out. I can go into the whole data set if anyone's interested, but they surveyed over 32,000 people to get this information on what people were liking working from home, what people they expected when they went back. So Custer is lucky enough to work from them and really use this data to support our own design principles. So that's what I just wanted to touch on real quick. So, you know, full transparency, this is Steelcase, but we work in partnership with them. So what these surveys found is there really are 5 things that people are expecting or needing when they come back to the office. And that's to feel safe and have a sense of safety and belonging when it comes to mitigating disease, but also just feeling emotionally safe. Belonging, having a sense of core tie to a company's purpose or your core values and culture. Productivity, huge one, can go into that a little bit more. And comfort, not just physically, but on the softer, more emotional well-being side of things as well. And finally, control when it comes to that flexibility and kind of work styles. So this first one, just to touch on a little bit around safety, you know, this didn't really come up before the pandemic, but it's important to note because this may not be the last time that we're in this situation. But the two number one things that came up around safety were just the considerations of air quality and adherence to safety protocols. Jane, like you said, at West Coast Chamber, following your own guidelines and protocols and just making sure that everyone feels safe and included in that. Belonging, I love this one so much just because it ties into a sense of culture. We talk about that a lot at Custer, and as we're bringing people back, trying to put our core values first and foremost, it just brings people together physically to know that they have a sense of belonging and a tie into just this environment that they feel really empowered to continue to support and work hard for that bottom line of a company. So there's community that that plays into that, and just to tie into shared values. Oops, let me go back here. Productivity. So this was a big one too. In the surveys that Steelcase did, you might imagine that productivity came up on both sides of the columns there. Like, what do you like working from home? I'm really productive at home, more so than at the office. And some people said, I have kids and dogs running around and I'm way more productive. There's two sides of that coin. But the interesting thing was people early on in the pandemic said that they were more productive perhaps at home, but that level of engagement and productivity gradually dropped off as time went through. So we're seeing that people are really ready to come back and feel more focused in the office space. So that changed a little bit, but everyone's situation is different. And again, that's why when we're having these conversations with clients, it's not, a one size fits all approach. Every individual and every company is going to have different expectations around productivity. I just want to point this out too, just that between leaders and employees, when asked why they wanted to return to the workplace, the number two things were also just kind of opposite sides of the coin, but go towards productivity. They want a space in the office to collaborate. That was the number one thing with both leaders and employees. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about spaces that people are coming back to, providing spaces to collaborate. And the number two one that came up on both sides was areas to focus. So you have to do both. You have to provide for we work and kind of the me work side of things. Comfort, and this is going into the physical. We've all experienced working at our kitchen tables and our counters, right? And if you can't get up and move around and have that sense of ergonomic support, it's really distracting and you can't be productive. But there's also just having that cognitive, able to focus, and emotional well-being that are all senses of comfort for a person outside of just the physical. And finally, control. And this really goes back to hybrid work styles. When we talk at Custer about flexibility, it can kind of be looked at through two lenses. Like moving forward, we may be entering this new world where there's an expectation that people want to work from home at least one day a week. So being able to have choice and control on where you work in and outside of the office, but also choice and control when you are in the office. Can you push your desk around? Do you have the ability to, is it on caster so you can move it into groups to collaborate? Can you get up and move somewhere else in your office? So that flexibility and choice and control is two-sided there a little bit. And that's all I got on that. But those are really the 5 things that we're focused on when you're talking about what your employees might be thinking about when you're going back to the office. Things for leaders to really expect, Jane.
Yeah, that's great. I love we work versus me work. And that's a great way of thinking about the different ways to think about configuring our space. So let's transition and talk a little bit about the physical space. You've got to convince us to perhaps coming from the comfort of home back into the physical office. And so how are those conversations going? And how do you take those expectations, the 5 things we just talked about, and translate those into the physical space of the office?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we thought about, and again, what we've been talking about more openly with other companies, is taking those expectations that employees may have and putting together design principles around them. So when you look at your office space right now, what are small or large changes that you can make to really encourage people back? And the 4 that we really landed on at Custer that are supported in our physical space are, number 1, harnessing home and hospitality. That's a really big one because, we all got real comfortable at home, and you have to think about like, okay, we got to kind of close the gap between the office and the home a little bit if you're going to expect people to come back. So adding in design principles for your physical space that make it more comfy and less corporate is really important, because that's going to make people feel more safe and more apt to come in. So having healthy snacks on hand for employees or guests, and really cultivating a sense of hospitality where we can host clients and members of West Coast Chamber and designers and anyone that wants to come in. We really want this environment to be somewhere where people feel welcomed and we can feel happy coming back together. The second one is the one that you mentioned, supporting teamwork and me work. That's really important here at Custer. We made a big change even for us. We're coming back to the office with our renovation with only 2 dedicated workstations. And that again is not everyone's cup of tea, but that's a big change for us. So we had to think about, okay, if we're not going to have assigned workstations, you still need to give a good ratio of, me spaces where people can get heads down focus work done in collaborative areas. The third one is embracing technology and togetherness. So we worked with our electrical and technology partner, CS Erickson, to really make an investment in our AV here at Custer, because we think it's important to give people equitable share in conversations and meeting, whether they might be meeting at home or across the conference table. Having the technology in the room was really important to us in our physical space to make sure everyone had a really good experience and they feel that they have that trust and ability to speak up. And technology is really important just to make everyone feel included. And finally, flexibility. That's the one that we touch on the most, being really intentional about movable furniture and adding in some new elements that could be moved into collaborative spaces. Even our technology is mobile, so we can get a really good return on that investment, taking an AV system where we can have a video conference and putting it on wheels so you can wheel it into another conference room. It's all about flexibility, and that's really important.
Yeah, that's great. So you said you had, I guess you had 15 months to rethink during the pandemic when we were out of the office to bring people back, and you redid everything. And so, gosh, Nikki, a picture says 1,000 words. So do you have some images you'd like to share with us about what your office space looks like today?
I do a little bit. I can touch on that. And I will tee this up by saying that we would love to have you guys here talking about the hospitality aspect of it. I've loved having people slowly come back in here from outside of our Custer organization. So I would love to share this with you in person and give you a tour. But yes, I can show some pictures real quick. I just wanted to point out that another really important thing to note is that our space that I'm going to show you some photos of here is a pilot space. So we thought it was very, very important to make sure that this was a flexible environment and we could get people's feedback. That's why you see that little QR code on the right there, a way to capture what do you like, what don't you like, what are you learning from working here, and we're checking that frequently, and we want to make changes to the space because we might not get it right the first time, and we do this all the time. So that flexibility is really important. And yeah, I just want to show you a few pictures. So if Keegan kind of flip through some before and afters so you can see our space here in Grand Rapids. We have opened up our reception area, which is not manned now. So we are just hosting our guests and our employees one-on-one, and incorporated a video wall on the right side of your screen there that really touches on Custer's core values and our history. So it tells our story really well. And we're talking to a lot of clients about how they can better do that with tech.
Can you pause a second, Nikki? Talk about not having a receptionist. That seems like a significant change. How does that work?
It is a significant change. And I think we're still learning through that too. We utilize a lot of calendar, reservation systems for the space to make sure we're not overlapping when we're hosting more private groups or private tours. But we're really putting that expectation back on our employees and what we're calling concierges here in Custer. Not that that's your primary job, but we want to make people feel hosted, and it's your responsibility in the space to welcome people in one-on-one. So if I have a client, you can expect me to be there to greet you. If Nick, someone else in our company, has a client coming in, then they're going to be there to greet you too. So it's putting that responsibility on everyone else to really serve, to welcome them into the Custer space. And that's just how we're dealing with it right now.
That's great.
Mm-hmm. Here's just some more shots of the technology that we incorporated. Again, these are private spaces that you can close a door and get some heads down in. They may not be acoustically sound, so they, not all of them are perfectly soundproof, but as long as you have that visual barrier, that does a lot to help people focus as well and giving them the technology to share. And just another view of our most used conference room, because it has whiteboards where you can collaborate analog as well as digital collaboration. So this is, by our measurements, the most used conference room currently. And here's some great before and after. So real quick, this is where our admin team sat before we did this renovation. So they were butts in seats most of the time, but they had the best access to light in the entire building. So we want to open this up and make it more of a shared space for everyone to use. So then the before and the after, just giving places to cafe, to sit down and have that sunshine on you. And on the left side, there is a phone booth. So that's an area where you can go in and do a call or have a video conference real quick and then go back to your work in the rest of the space. This was just an example of a conference room. So we went from kind of a more closed off to a more open, colorful. This is actually a system. It's an architectural system that can be put up and moved around the space. So this is actually moved 3 times within our building since the pandemic started. So it's not like a brick and mortar solution, but it can be taken down and put back up in 4 hours. So we're creating conference spaces for people to be able to focus. And again, a workstation, and this next one is beautiful. We really opened that up. So it's a place that people can share content on that screen and have a more relaxed posture and talking to one another, access to those windows. You can go ahead and keep flipping through. Yep, and these are our workstations right now. So these screens, everything you see there is on casters. So those desks can be moved and put together so people can work one-on-one. The mobile screen there with the greenery on it is also mobile. So you can move that and create your own private area and space. And every desk that we have has some external monitors, which we found very important from our surveys of our own employees, that they loved working from home with an external monitor. So no matter where you go to work at these workstations within our space, you can very quickly plug in, and everyone has an equitable share to that technology because every workstation has the same tech. So you can plug in anywhere, and those no favoritism on where you have to sit every day. And again, some more workstations. And this is our new conference space. So we really created this like round table around the campfire, big, beautiful conference table that we can really come together. And I think that this is going to be one of our favorite spaces to have collaborative sessions because it's so big and you can really see everybody across the table from you there. This is one of our mobile technologies. Sorry, Keegan, real quick. This is a Surface Hub. It's our new favorite toy because we can wheel it around anywhere. So we only have one of them in the building right now, but it gets a lot of use because we can move it from space to space, and it's great technology to keep people connected. And a private office, and my favorite space, the living room, which has the most beautiful access to light. And it's just a great place to have a cup of morning coffee and just get into my day. So that's my favorite area.
And that's absolutely beautiful. So let's talk a little bit about the technology aspect of it. Obviously, I saw a lot of pictures that included technology. I think many of us have had Zoom fatigue. And so we're going to figure out what that balance is like. And some people will still be in the office, some will still be home. I don't know where you guys have landed with what your hybrid model might look like, but what are some of the tips you've learned and are recommending for people for balancing that need for technology? What's too much, what's too little? Where's that headed?
That's a good question. I think, well, at least for us, it's going department by department on whether you need to have an in-person meeting or whether you can do it more remotely and touch base for a quick update. And that can be done easily, more virtually. We're really leaving it up to our managers and going through our own form of change management and unlearning our own ways to really have the organizer of the meeting set up, whether it's to be an in-person meeting or if it can be done remotely easily and just more quickly and efficiently. So they're really leading the charge on that. And always, we use Teams at Custer as an example. So very early on, putting the link, obviously, for people to join those meetings, but gradually tapering that off and just saying, this is a collaborative session. We'd like to be in person. Here's the room you can expect to meet. For those who are unable to come in office, you may default to the link below, so that's just kind of a protocol issue, but at least having the technology available to have people jump on is really great and share information.
Yeah, and that sounds like it dovetails beautifully with the invite, engage, and expect. So inviting people back in for those in-person collaborative meetings, and then you get to the point where it's the expectation that when you can do it there. You mentioned change management. I'll just give a plug. The perfect timing, our next West Coast Way magazine, the feature article on the cover is all about change management and the human side of that, because this is all about people and what amount of change we've all been through and learned. What are your suggestions for folks then that are still, some may be choosing to continue working from home, some may be in a hybrid model back at home a few days a week. learned about working from home over the last year?
I'm sorry, you broke up right at the end there. Can you repeat
What have we learned? What are the best tips we've learned for our at-home days? What are you recommending that maybe we've learned over the pandemic from being at home?
Oh, what we've learned about being from home. I mean, I think it's what we've all learned just about our pace of work. And, you know, it, at least for me and a lot of the articles that I've read is just we've gotten used to that flexibility, but we're all on all the time. So working from home, I mean, that's just kind of a personal suggestion outside of the workspace, but having time that you're on, but really remembering to disconnect at the end of the day and protect your well-being and making sure that you're on the same page with managers. So you're just really controlling your emotional and mental well-being and being able to turn off at the end of the day. You know, just from working at home, it was so easy to get into those patterns of, okay, because I have this technology at my fingertips, I can be on all the time. That's not good for anyone. And I think that's also why space is really important too. Maybe that's how you dictate it in your mind, that you get your heads down work at home where that work gets done the most, and you can be really on and collaborative and creative in your environment. When you go into the office and you're around people and you can touch base with one another, then it's just that mindset of, okay, I'm in the office space. This is a time to be collaborative and connect with my peers in my company. So that's at least what I've learned. And that's just how I'm trying to kind of process it and file it away in my mind. And it's good to have our leaders in the office today and see that that's really the approach that a lot of us are taking faster to.
Well, I've heard it said, instead of working from home, it kind of turned into living at work, that there weren't any boundaries between home and work. And that got hard, you know, in the dead of winter, home all the time. That was tough for many of us. So it's so energizing to be back in person. I know chamber staff, certainly with one of our core values is positive energy, contagious attitudes. You know, it just, we're invigorated when we're back together, and that's wonderful.
Yes.
I saw a question in the chat feature. The question is it Zoom fatigue or is it meeting fatigue? Any comments on just too many meetings in general?
Probably the same comments that we all have, right? Yeah, it got really easy to have them back to back to back and just get caught in this monotony of meetings. But that's what I'm most excited about, just reconnecting with people within the office, is just not having the sense that you have to go from meeting to meeting, to give yourself some power and control over placing some time in between those meetings. So allowing yourself to just step back from it before you jump into the new meeting. I think it is just meeting fatigue, but it's a lot easier to have those back-to-back meetings when you're sitting in front of a computer screen. We're not meant to do that as humans, to be within a foot from somebody. We need some time to separate and, you know, be in a whole environment and not just looking at your computer screen.
Yeah. Well, that's why I think your 5 principles, safety, belonging, productivity, comfort, and control, all really combine to make a just an important statement as we look at this.
Good things to think
So
about.
we're starting to run out of time. And Nikki, you know, somebody mentioned in the comments that your space is beautiful, but certainly not all of our members have the ability to do that. You know, we can't just instantly transform our office spaces. So we always like to leave with, what are 3 things that I could do today to integrate some of these concepts that I could do on the budget I have available, but that could really make for an ideal workspace? What are your recommendations?
Oh, good question. Well, yeah, I think that, I mean, a lot of the things we talked about today aren't necessarily having to do with investing in new furniture, although those are great ways to beautify your space, obviously. But I think that just talking about space and making considerations that aren't so tied to the physical tools, but just reconfiguring your space for the principles that we talked about a little bit. A big one that could be helpful with the current assets you have in your office is just reconfiguring for less personal workspace within your footprint, and incorporating more of that collaborative space and making more team rooms. So maybe similarly to what we did, it's taking 2 workstations or cubicles, if you will, and creating a collaborative space. So what kind of lounge furniture or conference table do you have that you can shift that previous me space to a we space that can be more creative and collaborative, that'll really encourage people to come back if you're providing more areas for connection in person, especially if you're going to be an organization where people may be doing some more heads down work at home, if they're granted that flexibility, but they come into the office in order to connect to a company's purpose and other colleagues. So just a reconfiguration of your current assets. And our workplace consultant team and our change managers here at Custer, we have those conversations all the time. Like, what's important to your organization and how can we help you just go through this shift with your own employees and look at your space differently. So that's a really important one. A second one is just defining your flexible schedules within your team. I think that it's really great just outside of the space, but asking from a manager perspective, asking your employees, what does your ideal schedule look like? So everybody's expectations are in line. Some people may have to take their kids to school, but they might work a little bit later in the day to make up for that time. And just so there is this sense of trust and communication, and making sure those protocols are rolled out in a really easy to understand way. Just getting on the same page with all that, so you're creating very clear expectations. And the third one, this is kind of funny, but you may notice that in some of those pictures that we showed, there's a lot of greenery in our space and access to natural light. And that's interesting. It's called biophilia from a design principle, and that talks about people's inherent just connection to nature. And there's actual studies about how productivity and wellness are increased when you have access to natural light and greenery in your space, especially in those areas that you're doing more creative work. So think about bringing in more greenery, whether it's artificial or real plant life, or natural color schemes that make you feel like you have more of that connection to outdoors that we all want so badly this summer in Michigan, right?
Yeah. Great advice, and that's something we can all do. So take a look at the assets we have, set expectations. Boy, I say that all the time. It's all about expectations, and think about a little greenery. Those are things that we can do today to really make a difference as we develop ideal workspaces. And certainly that's what we're known for in West Michigan, is great places to work. So Nikki Probst, thanks so much for joining us today. Great information for our members, and appreciate your continued support of the West Coast Chamber.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you. So time to wrap up our program. And so we always like to end with a West Coast Cash giveaway. And our winner today is Courtney Vanderhonging. And Courtney is with Freedom Dev in Zealand. So Courtney, someone from the Chamber staff will be emailing you your West Coast Cash certificate. Love for you to spend that in our community. Again, thanks to EDF and Julie Parker for being our sponsor today. I hope you learned about the SBA 504 programs, and we can help get that information to you if you're interested in learning more. We will again send you a survey. That feedback is so important. Let us know what you thought about today's program. And even more importantly, we're starting to put together our fall programming, and we know we're going to be back together. And so we'd love to hear your ideas for future programming as well. And as far as getting together, we have our golf outing coming up. So we want to see you at our 53rd annual golf outing. We're going to be back at Macatawa Golf Club on August 18th. So we have been promoting that. The quick link is on our website. So sign up for that if you're able. And with that, it's the end of our program. It's been a great Wake Up West Coast coffee break, and have a remarkable day.
West Coast. Make it a great week.